that scoop, unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories that talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, the secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries, 5 great guests. Super chat, it's a wild member. Share and subscribe on the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen, Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, monsters, and welcome to this week's episode of Monsters on the Edge on the Untold Radio Network. I'm your host, Barnaby Jones. Today's episode is going to be pre-recorded, so if you guys are making questions or comments in the comments section and we're ignoring it, we're just not live in studio, so just want to give everybody a heads up before we get started. Guys, coming up on Sunday, the 26th of January, is going to be the new season of Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society's road trip series on YouTube. And we're kicking it off with my trip to Skinwalker Ranch. That's right, guys. So I got to go out to Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, as well as the UFO Valley campground, and do some exploring and research out there. So that's where we're going to start with this year's season. It's going to be big. Comes out on the 26th on YouTube. If you want to check it out even earlier, you can get it on the 18th on our Patreon page. So that's what we got coming up for that. Also, guys, if you want to meet the Caps team in person, we are going to be at the Oshkosh Beyond the Veil Expo, February 9th in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We are going to be at Midwest Metaparacon in Eau Claire, Wisconsin in April. And we are going to be at the Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention May 9th through the 11th in Appleton, Wisconsin. It's going to be a great event. On Friday, we have a VIP dinner, and we're going out on a Bigfoot expedition in northern Wisconsin. And then Sunday, we have 2 paranormal investigation events on Sunday. So if you guys are interested in that, if you guys can't make it out in person, you can also get virtual tickets. So you no matter where you are in the entire world, or if you just can't make it there in person, you can get yourself a virtual ticket and stream all of our speakers live during the event or at your convenience after the event has ended. And then, guys, on June 7th, we head down to Chicago for the Chicago Paranormal Convention. That's what we got coming up. If you guys want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
And a reminder again, today's show is pre-recorded. Today's guest is Jonathan Easley. He's a Bigfoot investigator and filmmaker with over 10 years of investigating the Sasquatch phenomenon all over the Western United States. He has spent a few years documenting his adventures through his channel, Western Bigfoot Exploration. Jonathan is an avid outdoorsman and has spent years of backpacking experience, which he heavily incorporates into his research. His YouTube channel features level-headed science-based research, all displayed in a cinematic storytelling manner for people of all levels of interest to watch. His opinions and observations reflect a scientific approach. Since his daytime profession, he works with science and anatomy in the medical field. Notable highlights of Jonathan's research and his channel include advanced anatomy discussion with Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and participating in the finding of Sasquatch hair, appearances in several small-town monsters documentaries, and the documentation of audio and physical evidence of an unknown species. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Jonathan. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me on. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Good to have you back. I got to speak with you, I think it was a couple years ago now on my other show, and so it's good to catch up with you, man.
Yeah. The presentation is a little bit better now. Look at you, Untold Radio Network. Everything's great.
The last time I went back and I looked at our last interview, and it was one of the very first ones I did on Monday Morning Monsters, and it was when I was still filming out in my trailer.
Well, in your defense, I was I think in my garage or something like that, and you've upgraded. You're looking good there. I got my my casts up in my office here now, so we've both stepped our game up.
Absolutely, yeah. Come a long way, man. Come a long way. So what is I don't even know where to begin with you, man. Like, what have you been up to? You've gotten all kinds of like documentaries and stuff out. You've worked with small town monsters now. That's exciting.
Well, I've appeared on their documentaries. I don't work with them, but I've appeared on a small handful of them. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of. I started out doing a lot of like stuff in the Sierras that I didn't document. Those were in my researcher, backpacker, hiker days. I didn't start making videos until I got really into like the Bluff Creek stuff. I was a skeptic of the Patterson-Gimlin film. I knew how to raise all the red flags and make the counter arguments against it. And the more I learned about it, the more it became real, the more those red flags kind of disappeared or were explained away, I should say. And there came one point where I was like, oh my gosh, I think this thing's actually real. So I took it upon myself to go to Bluff Creek and see it myself. I talked to a lot of people like the Bluff Creek Project guys. They're on a lot of my videos. On my videos, you can see me go to the Patterson-Gimlin film site and show you around. Also, I do a lot of investigation in that area around the Bluff Creek area. Those surrounding roads have a lot of things going on. You have everybody from Bobo to, Robert Leiterman, who wrote the Bluff Creek Project book. They have just tons of stories and they know all the history. Great guys. There's a lot to tell there. And, I have, I think, maybe 3 or 4 videos from the Bluff Creek area. But that's not the only places I've gone. I did a lot of stuff in the Sierras, recent stuff in Washington. My most recent documentary is Mount Rainier Sasquatch. It just came out, and it's doing well. It's getting great reviews, and there's a lot of very interesting things on there.
Absolutely. We have, for those people listening, we have links to the your YouTube channel as well as specifically just your newest video in the show notes. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, anything we talk about, it's in the show notes for you guys, nice and easy. So yeah, wow, that's really cool. Where are you actually based out of? Like what state or wherever?
So I'm in Boise, Idaho. I grew up in Southern California, but I moved here 3 years ago. So I've spent 3 years here in Idaho, and it's kind of, I love it because it's a great spot where I can, it's, I think, I want to say 13 hours of driving to Bluff Creek, 8.5 to like a place like Bumping Lake, Washington, which is a really hot spot. And I'm only 4.5 hours from the Paul Freeman film site, which I've gone to as well. So yeah, I'm a lot closer to the hot spots in the Pacific Northwest. And that's a good thing. I love it here.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, before we get to all those, I got to ask, Idaho, do you have Bigfoot out there? Do you do any research right in your home state?
So it's kind of funny. I haven't really I haven't sunk my teeth into the research out here. I live in southern Idaho, and the reports are, they're not plentiful like they are up in northern Idaho, like, Bonner County, Coeur d'Alene area. There's just a lot of reports. There's audio. There's, a lot of good stuff coming out from there. Here, it's a little more sparse, a little more scarce, but there are, and I have poked around the forests here and, found a couple very, kind of interesting things. I talked to a couple people that claim to have had sightings, and they sound pretty legit. I just think that they don't frequent down in my side of the forest very much. So I find myself driving to a lot of other places like this.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm slowly working through all 50 states. I'm trying to find researchers to get on the show to talk about specific states. And that is definitely one that I have not heard like anything coming out of for, like any research or any stories or anything,
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to get to areas up here. This area, I think it's 75% wilderness here. So you have these long extended roads going through these vast areas of wilderness, and there's really nothing for tourists to come and look at. You know what I mean? So as opposed to like Oregon, you have all those mountains, Mount Hood, Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, and all that. And up in Washington, Rainier and St. Helens, like I said. But here you don't have people avidly coming here, and you also don't have them avidly coming here to look for Bigfoot. So all the famous spots, they're outside the state. So maybe it's a good thing I get to have it all to myself.
I was gonna say, based on what you describe and stuff, you would think that would be almost perfect habitat for something. There's not a lot of people, there's not a lot of tourists, not a lot of travel through there. Maybe it's just a matter of they're there that just nobody sees them because nobody's there to see them.
Yeah. I also think that it makes them a lot harder to find because there's just these areas with no roads for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, as opposed to, Oregon and Washington are that way as well. But there are roads. Everything kind of is a little bit more accessible. And over here, if something wants to hide, 30 miles from the nearest road for its entire life, it can do that.
What is like the logging industry look like compared to the other states?
Oh boy, there's a vast logging industry, and like I said, they're kind of operating in these areas that are off in the middle of nowhere. So it's not something that you really see. When I travel to Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, I tend to see it, off the highways and stuff. And up here, you don't really see it. It's happening, in areas that, far from the cities or towns. So yeah, everything is just a lot more isolated up here when you get into the wilderness.
Wow. Interesting. I know it's not your focus of research and stuff, but I just find it interesting because it just seems like that would be like the perfect habitat then with no people and stuff. And it seems like you should have a lot more evidence or sightings and stuff, but if you don't have people, you don't have the logging going out, and you don't have the people to report the stuff. So
correct. Yeah. And like it's always said, you need a Bigfoot and you need a person to have a sighting. There's no people.
Bigfoot just writes in, really, "Hey, I was at this location."
yeah, they have it really easy out here. It's way too easy to hide for them, I think. But but I'll definitely be sinking my teeth in within the next few years and producing some content about it.
Yeah, that'd be really cool because, like I said, I don't hear a lot about Idaho, so it'd be cool.
Maybe you will.
That's your next project. It's been assigned. Yeah. Well, so where you've been to all these, like pivotal places, that are the highlights of all the Bigfoot sightings, the Bigfoot stories and stuff like that. Where do you think is the most like active current location? Because we always hear about like Bluff Creek, and it's the mecca for all the Bigfooters to go and see in their life or whatever. But I've heard that there's not so much activity there recently. Like there's some stuff in that, but not you're not going to go there and automatically see a Bigfoot. So where are you getting your most activity right now?
Well, I'll reference I'll just give 3 different places that and I'll kind of talk about the activity that I've seen there and what I've heard about. So We'll start with Bluff Creek. Bluff Creek is kind of a funny place because everyone's under the impression that it's this like Bigfoot Disneyland that everybody goes to look for Bigfoot there. And it's the total opposite. People do go in and they do go to the Patterson-Gimlin film site and they visit, and then they go to Willow Creek and then they're gone. But you don't see people setting up there and, doing their night investigations. There's not even a lot of like content from content creators. There's not a lot of people there. The reason I know this is because like I'm in contact with the Bluff Creek Project guys who go there frequently, and, they don't see anybody. They don't see people. You can go up there and not see a person for your entire trip other than the people that are in your group. And I find that we're some of the only people that we've ever heard of that still doing night investigations, and we're hearing things. I want to say almost every time. There's been plenty of times where we haven't heard anything. And then there'll be just this one night where something starts screaming off the side of the mountain. Like it happened to Alex Petikoff and I. Mm-hmm. He recently made his Return to Bluff Creek documentary. It's on the Small Town Monsters channel. And the last night we're up, we're in a place called Layered Meadow, which has had lots of significant stuff happen. And we hear this yelling off the mountainside that was just slightly too quiet for the recorders to pick up. But it wasn't just us. It was also the other group that heard the exact same thing. And it sounded like a guy on a roller coaster going up and down. And it would go for like 20-second spurts. The year before that, a guy named Glenn and I, he's Brown Dwarf on YouTube. He produces some good content too. We're hiding in the bushes at like 10:30 p.m., maybe 11. And we hear something start yelling off the side of the mountain, which we recorded a little blip of it. And I present that in my Bigfoot and Bluff Creek evidence video. And we also go around during the daytime looking for, evident footprints or hair on a tree. And there were these trees with strange bends in them. They looked like they had been manipulated by hands, and we were trying to rule out elk. We all had a lot of ideas about it. But a member in our group, Ron, noticed that there was hair on the tree. So he said, well, this might be what left it. And we all started picking different pieces of hair on there and collecting it into little sample jars. And Damon Irons, a good friend of mine, reaches up to the very top at the 8 to 9 foot level and picks off this weird looking hair. And it's like 6 inches long. It's black with a little bit of a reddish tinge to it. And we're just looking at it. And it was so strange. And we all individually went to Cliff Brackman's North American Bigfoot Museum, and we looked at the hairs, and the ones that we gathered were all bare, but that long hair that he gathered, which is I show on my channel, they ran it under the microscope, and I think it was Nico at the museum looks at it and like calls up Cliff, like, dude, you got to get down here. He goes down there, and sure enough, it like everything matched up with what's called the Fehrenbach gold standard. Dr. Henry Fehrenbach was a primatologist who gathered a bunch of these hairs and measured them, and he found specific characteristics in these hairs: width, breadth, the I don't know what the word would be, opacity, how much light shines through them, and also the end is tapered, and it doesn't line up with any known species, and it belongs to a specific species because it's replicated over multiple hairs. So there's a species out there of something that's found in Bigfoot footprints, found after sightings, found in trees that look like they've been manipulated by hands, that are collected by people looking for Bigfoot. And no one knows what these hairs are. Science has a big problem on its hand when it can't explain these away. The University of Oregon, who specify in hair identification, have no idea what it is. So there's this mystery hair belonging to a mystery species out there, which I was lucky enough to not only see, but also film Damon collect. I've heard vocalizations. I recorded a couple suspect vocalizations there in Bluff Creek. And as far as Bluff Creek goes, that's some of the weird things that have happened there. But it's kind of cool because I go off and, I don't see this negatively, but people go, oh, there's nothing going on in Bluff Creek. I heard it's dead. I heard it's quiet, and I go, yeah, it's quiet. Don't go there. Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
But I keep going there and weird things keep happening. And, I've been lucky enough to be able to document them on camera, and, hopefully one steps out of the brush one day And as far as Bluff Creek, those are some of the best things that have happened there. So things are still happening there, and a lot of people don't go there.
That's awesome. Now, before we move on to your next one or wherever we're going here, so let's talk a little bit about that hair. Then I totally derailed my whole train of thought there. Have you reached out at all to Darby Orcutt about that, or the guy that has the hair?
Well, the reason that we didn't reach out to him is because it was contaminated in his collection. Okay. Damon reached up and grabbed it with his hand, and the proper way to actually gather it is with tweezers that have been sanitized, using a mask to try to not get your breath all over it. It's very, very easy to contaminate. It's very easy to contaminate hair that's collected. You have to be very careful. So it wasn't collected in that way. So we didn't do that. We just took it to the North American Bigfoot Center. Alex Petikoff did collect hair properly the next year. He sent that to a lady named Cindy Dosen of the works with the Olympic Project, and she gives really good reports on the hair. That hair, unfortunately, wasn't Sasquatch hair, but there are methods of checking. There's the visual aspect, and then there's the DNA aspect. The DNA aspect, is most people know, costs a bunch of money, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and hopefully one day, our goal is to gather a hair properly and send it to Darby, because that would speak volumes. And we have found the hair once. Who's to say we haven't found it again? And we spent 4 days trying to find hair up in Washington this past time. So hopefully it happens.
I know there's a whole money involved in this whole thing, but it just drives me nuts whenever people talk about like these anomalous hair samples. Like, okay, so I'm very science based. I'm very, like into, the natural history museums and all that stuff and that. And if you have an anomalous hair, you take that one and you break it down as far as you can to get, whatever DNA or, because it's got some signature to it, because obviously if it didn't, it wouldn't come back anomalous. It would come back bare or what have you. So you take that one sample and you get as much information out of it as you can. And then when you get the next sample and it comes back anomalous, if that sample matches the first one, well, don't you have something? Like, isn't that the point? And here's the thing is you never hear about is, well, this university has this sample here, this university has this one, but they match. You never hear anything about, oh, this one's just anomalous. We don't know what it is. And that university doesn't know what it is. But don't you have enough information to say that you don't know what it is, that you could compare that unknown to another unknown and have a matching set? You know
Correct.
What I mean?
Like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Why isn't this being done at all? I mean, you already have that much information.
There's this total lack of pursuit of evidence, and it bothers me so much. But what's funny? It's not only because Bigfoot is kind of taboo to science. Mm-hmm. You see it in astronomy too. If you notice this, all these finds of new stars or planets far, far away, they are made by mostly individuals, mm-hmm. like individual astronomers, not universities, not giant, well-funded operations, because for some reason there's this lack of pursuit in it. And you see that in the physical evidence of the gathering of hair. I was up in Dr. Meldrum's office a couple years ago and we were discussing this, and he had said that what he has heard is that the University of Oregon, they're the leaders in visual hair identification, and they have samples of everything. And supposedly they have a sample of this anomalous hair that they call the Sasquatch hair that fits the Dr. Fehrenbach's gold standard. And they just have it, there. But he said that they're moving away from the visual recognition of hair, that they're just going to, start doing DNA testing, which would be a bad thing because it's pretty hard to pull DNA out of these Sasquatch hairs because they have no medulla, and in the medulla is where you hold the mitochondrial DNA to easily prove it. So you'd have to turn to someone like Darby Orcutt, who is facilitating different methods of DNA collection in this case. So it's a hard thing to do, and it's even harder when the professionals of that field are not pursuing it. You have to convince them to, or yeah, I don't know what they need. So I think the discovery is going to be made by someone like Darby Orcutt with the University of North Carolina, or just an individual that's very, very good at this that can afford to DNA test it.
It's getting cheaper and cheaper. I know. I listen to Cliff Barrickman's show and stuff. Bigfoot and Beyond, and they were talking. It's about $1,000 now to get a DNA test done. So,
wow, I mean, that's great.
It's coming down, So I mean, that's still a lot of money. But when you were talking earlier about like $2,000-$3,000 to get the DNA and stuff done, I mean, $1,000 isn't as much as it was. But who's got that?
And you have to have the right person find the hair and properly collect it. Which, absolutely. I mean, that
and store it
almost impossible.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I was going to say one other thing on that, and then I don't remember. All right. So, I guess we will move on then. So where's you said you had 3 really interesting sites. Where's your next one at?
Yeah. Well, they were kind of just comparisons, different regions that I wanted to compare, that I compare them in my mind to decide where I'm going to go next. But another one's the Blue Mountains. I went to the Paul Freeman film site, and I have a video there where I had noticed to get to why I went there. One, I found out where it is, and I try to look up YouTube content, and there's like nothing on YouTube. Like no one has ever made a video at the Freeman film site. I think Scott Violette had like a couple pictures and some real quick panning around, and that's it. There was never a thorough explanation of what it looks like today, as opposed to like the Patterson-Gimlin film site, which is also a very known video. People compare them all the time, but one has a boatload of information, and the other one is like this obscure place that no one even knows where it is. So I went there with a gentleman named Mike Casey, and we kind of just like broke it down and recognized a lot of the stumps from the video. We walked Freeman's path. And when you go to these sites, it's really neat because it leaves you with a better understanding of what happened that day. And you kind of experience what Freeman did in his shoes, how far away this thing was. You're looking through a VHS video when you watch his footage. And I don't know if you ever maybe some people won't remember this, but those wind-up cameras back then, you take a cool picture of an airplane at an air show, and then you develop it, and it's like this big. It's like this little tiny speck on there, The Freeman footage kind of gives you the same impression, because when you're standing there, you're like, oh man, he was not that far away. I think that I jokingly like timed it and ran, and it took me like 6 seconds to get from where he is to where the Bigfoot was walking. So he was pretty close, and I show that in my video. As far as activity there, personally, I haven't experienced anything other than some strange knocking noises in the morning, which they were coming from a certain direction. And we'd hear these. I kept hearing them. A couple of them I got on camera, but that was all that I got. When I returned there the next year, was this past year, 2024, I went with Robert Lederman and a couple other people, and we just went for a couple days. Didn't have any success. We all took off, but as we were taking off, you had Cliff passing us on the road, and they kind of went very, very to a place very near the Freeman film site, and they had a few things, very significant things happen. A couple sightings actually. And I believe they pulled a footprint cast all in like the night they got there. They heard loud knocks and all kinds of things. So that place is active, and there are things happening. But once again, I feel like there it's safe to say there's not a lot of people going there researching. I've talked to like Michael Freeman, and the people that do research kind of contact him, and there's just this small handful of people that go a couple times a year at the most. There is no new Paul Freeman. There's no Wes Summerlin, going up there that are, boots to the ground all the time. And that's what you need. If you go up there once or twice a year and have something happen, you are extremely lucky. You're very, very lucky, in my opinion. And people do get lucky though. But it's a great place. it leads you to believe. You just get this feeling like if I just look hard enough, I can find footprints. There's so many different animal tracks, and it's so thick in there and so isolated. It really feels like it'd be easy for something to live out there. You get that feeling that it's going to just poke around the tree at any time, and then you can go, oh, there he goes.
So for those of you out there that don't know where that is, where exactly is like the Freedman Site, like state and stuff?
So it's in Oregon, but it's right along the Washington border in the Blue Mountains. Okay. So, and if you look up the Mill Creek watershed, it's right along there. And the Mill Creek watershed's a weird place because there are no roads. There's no people allowed back there. It's a completely protected area. The only people that go in there from the Forest Service are the people that need to go in there. So if I was a Sasquatch, man, that's the place to be because no one's ever going to bother you. You can't even fly drones in there. You can't do anything. So you will never be found if you're a Sasquatch. Now, this place where the film was shot was right outside the boundary. So could be that one walked outside the boundary, didn't read the sign, and came up to Deduck Spring there and was filmed and then walked back over there. Who knows?
Interesting. So let me ask you this: being at that film site, then, how close is that to like a running water source as well, like a spring or a river or anything?
The spring is right there. In fact, it's believed that the Sasquatch in that video crossed in front of Freeman's path going to the creek, which it's literally right there. If you're watching Freeman's video, it starts off, he's looking down. I mean, he's standing right next to a water source, which is this little tiny creek that's right there that leads to a pond. So there's this spring called Deduck Spring that leads to Deduck Pond there. And so it's right there, great water source. And there's even a lady that used to work with Paul Freeman named Dar Addington. And she's in Michael Freeman's book. She was a sheep herder up there. So she spent a long time up there and she's seen all kinds of strange things. And she'd bounce them off of Wes Summerlin and Paul Freeman. They were kind of like the crew up there. And she refers to down in that creek as the Bigfoot, what'd you say, the daycare, because you can literally go down there and completely disappear. The guy I was with, Mike Casey, I was up on the trail and he walked down and he was like talking to me and all kinds of things. And I could not even hear him or see him. And he was just right off the side of the trail. So it's a great place. If, she always says, oh, they probably dropped their babies off here. And, that's her theory. And it makes total sense. And yeah, a lot of people say that, there's that second half that Doug Hychek sharpened up really nicely, by the way. If people haven't seen that sharpened up image, they need to go buy Michael Freeman's book and check it out. There's QR codes in it. And I mean, I went from, it's some blurry image. You can't really tell what it is. To like, I think at the first time I saw it, I gasped. You literally see this little baby Sasquatch's like leg come up, and if, skeptics want to be skeptics, it's a hard thing to explain away, because literally you see this mass come up off the ground and this leg pick up to wrap around what looks like the big one. So strange things up there. And that's right along that creek as well.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard other researchers and stuff talk about why Roger and Bob got that got that footage was because of the creek being there,
Yeah.
And the sound of it, kind of masking their approach or, just like being distracted by the smells of the creek and the water and stuff like that. And now here again, you're talking about another, footage that was taken of one of these things, and it's right by a creek as well. So you got to wonder if that plays a major factor into this.
Yeah. Well, it's also kind of a thick forest and things don't resonate as loud in that particular area. If you walk outside of that area, things resonate, I'd say, very loud, kind of a strange place. In my video, I say it's the loudest forest I've ever heard, and it really is. There was, squirrels chirping and banging going on, and they literally threw acorns at me on video. It was just funny. But the sound was masked because he was at a slightly lower elevation than this thing, so it's entirely possible that it didn't hear him. Plus, just the way it's set up there, it's a strange setup. It was one of those perfectly placed encounters that it happened the way it happened. And if things were a little different, maybe it wouldn't happen that way.
Interesting. Have you tried any kind of experience? I had Shane Corson on my show a while ago, and he talked about the best place to try and set up trail cameras was along rivers and streams like that, because the smell and the sound kind of masks them out and stuff, and possibly, better chance of catching something. Have you tried anything like that at either of these locations or any location?
So I don't put up game cameras. Shane's a real smart guy, and if I were to ask anybody, I would definitely say, he's the go-to guy in that. It's just, walking alongside a creek, the thing is that your senses are all dulled as well. So, that creek is loud, it's raging, the smells are carrying, and you're just as susceptible as they are to probably having your senses masked. So yeah, it's a great idea. Not something I've really utilized in my research, but good idea.
Interesting. I know, like, I don't know where I get information from sometimes, but you talk about hunting, where they used to do like fox hunts and stuff like that, and they would run along streams and stuff to kind of lose the scent or the track, so if these creatures use the streams or the rivers as like highways to move around, like we use trails or roads, that would be another reason why we're losing footprints or losing trails of these things, because they're using these highways or the riverways as corridors to move around.
Correct. Yeah, I think so. And that you got to figure in people have a hard time sometimes of why are these things so elusive? Well, one thing that I learned was that, for example, deer never see a mountain lion in their lifetime. I don't know if they have maybe they asked the deer, have you ever seen a mountain lion? No, but it's within the mountain lion's DNA to stay hidden from its prey. Mm-hmm. So that mountain lion is constantly doing things, the way that it parallels a deer on a trail, it's constantly masking itself to so it can be that predator. It has predatory skills to they don't appear for deer. It's in their DNA. And I think that with Sasquatch, it's easy to say that they're not just hiding from us, they're probably hiding from its prey too. If they get sighted by a deer, well, they're not going to be able to pursue it. So, they're at the top of the food. If they're at the top of the food chain out there, they're hiding from everything below it. And I think that that's a good thing to keep in mind, so I don't know, when you go to like Bluff Creek, you have these very, very, very steep mountainsides. And I've heard lots of accounts, to reference one, Kathy and Bob Strain had a sighting together. And this was in Oklahoma. And they said that she used the term, they shot up the mountainside like with bungee cords. They just went up there and there was no up and down movement, no struggle. They just like flawlessly ran up this mountainside. So, it's always been my theory that they live up on these steep mountainsides and come down into the creeks, which is exactly how Bluff Creek is and the Patterson-Gimlin film site is. But it's just kind of a theory of mine. Nothing else can run up and down those mountainsides as quick as they're reported to.
Yeah, you do hear that a lot in a lot of the encounter stories, how they just like shoot straight up the side of a mountain or a cliff or anything. So that's interesting. Yeah. So what is your third location?
Third location, we'll go Washington. And Washington is, I just found out, it is so full of reports, like legit reports. You do hear crazy ones, but the amount of, I was backpacking and I saw one, and I'm not into the Bigfoot thing, or researchers producing sounds and, recording sounds and, casting footprints. It's happening a lot more often up there. There's just places like Packwood all around that area that are just, these extremely thick forests, and the Bigfoot researchers up there, I would say they're some of the most successful in the country. Shane Corson, you mentioned him. Chris Spencer has some of the best audio. You got the Jonathan and Sarah Brown. They live in over in like Gray's Harbor, and they have a ton of strange audio that they've recorded. They've had a couple sightings. They're very honest people. These things, they looks like they come through their property. They're right where the wilderness meets agriculture, as he said in my video. If you watch my most recent video, it's called Mount Rainier Sasquatch. And I interviewed Jonathan, and he tells me how, where they live, he thinks that they have them passing through every once in a while. And they just have these completely bizarre recordings that I don't know how they can be faked. I don't know what it is. And then you have all the way on the opposite side, like Bumping Lake, for example. There's a guy named Tristan Yolton, and he was up there with his mom camping, and he had set a recorder out. And at about 2:30 a.m. one night in July, you just have what I call the Patterson-Gimlin of audio. It's just, these loud screams from different proximities, whooping, howling. You hear almost like what sounds like a man saying, and it's just impossible to replicate. You'd have to have a group of like 6 or 7 people standing on different parts of the mountain to replicate what he recorded. And it went on for 30 minutes. He has a 30-minute recording of these things going nonstop. What I show on my video is like a 30-second clip of it. So I think that Washington, it's just, one, it's easy it has this perfect combination of being easy for them to hide. And also there's the accessibility into these wilderness areas, like, dirt roads for people to go into. And you also have some very solid people up there researching. So it's got a fine combination of more than a few things going on for it. But that's one place I got to get back up to. I got to get back up to Bumping Lake. The things that I heard there and the things I experienced were very strange. I'll kind of run through this just real quick. What happened to me was I got there, and it was a place where there was a very well-known sighting amongst researchers. There's a gentleman named Bart Coutinho who had a sighting up there through his thermal imager, and that's what kind of like, if you ever meet this guy Bart, like there's nobody on Earth that's more hell-bent on filming a Sasquatch than he is. And anybody that knows him will tell you that. You camp with him and he's just gone for like 3 or 4 hours, just walking the woods alone with his thermal imager, trying anything and everything. Very, very intelligent guy. He was there, had a sighting through his thermal imager. It was in the days where it didn't have record capability, so he wasn't able to record it. We were at that same place, and that happens to be the same place where Tristan Yolton recorded those vocalizations. So it's a very kind of well-known spot if you're in the know. Me and another gentleman walked into this spot, and we heard what was probably a woodpecker, and then maybe it wasn't a woodpecker, and then it became obvious it was not a woodpecker. You're hearing something clack rocks together very, very loudly. And it was kind of this 3 hours of trying to find out what's clacking rocks. We'd hear these really loud rock clacks, which I recorded. You could see on my video. Mm-hmm. And we're walking through this thick brush, which like you can't even take 2 consecutive steps. You take 1 step, then you got to go over a log, then you got to hop over a branch and then move around this tree. And it's like, moving 20 feet takes you 20 seconds. And so we chased this thing around. It kept moving locations. I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot, but it was just very strange. It kept moving locations. The rock clacks were at different volumes, and we were trying to rule it out. We heard huge branches breaking when we would do something in response, and there came a point where he saw a heat signature, and it was in the bushes and the foliage, and it was in that direction, and then the heat signature dissipated as he was looking at it, meaning he thinks that there was something there. So it took us forever, but we walked over there, and I did find almost right where it was, this nice impression, about 12 to 13 inches. And it's not the best cast. You don't look at it and go, oh man, that's amazing. It looks terrible, as a matter of fact, but the information's in it. You can see that there was weight put on it. You can see that the toes jammed in to the ground. And it was unfortunately like on this texture of like what looked like gardening soil, kind of like that, that wet Pacific Northwest type stuff. So I made a pretty good cast of it. It had some pretty good information. I show that on my video. And, that was the end of that. Like we spent we were starving by that time. It was like 3.5 hours of roaming around trying to find this rock clacking. And the craziest part was that I got home from that trip and I'm telling people about all this rock clacking. And I go and watch this Salish Sasquatch channel, which is the Jonathan and Sarah Brown's channel. And they were there a month before. A month before, a lady had a sighting there. And I show her recollection of that. And then there's these guys on there that are researching, and they're talking about, so we keep hearing these rock clacks, something clacking rocks, and we're right behind over here. They were exactly where we were, chasing around rock clacking. So, that's really neat. It's like replication. Mm-hmm. You're hearing, you have different people hearing the same sounds, multiple sightings up there. It's a very strange place, and I try to cover it as good as I could in that video. But yeah, Washington's pretty good, man. I gotta get back there.
So do you think that you talked about it moving around? Do you think that it was one woodpecker, Sasquatch, whatever, moving around?
Yeah.
Or do you think it was multiples of them?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It was on the same side of camp. When I say camp, we had walked into the thick foliage outside of camp, but it was on the same side of this kind of canyon, but it had moved westward, and then it had moved back. And then we can hear on a couple occasions where it would snap through branches, and you can just generally hear movement of something moving over there. And, you can hear this guy going, in my video going, maybe there's like an elk right there. There's got to be an elk. Like it had to be something big like that. The only thing that's big up there, I don't even know if there are elk in the Bumping Lake area, but we just couldn't figure it out. It was rock clacking. It was moving around. And I just felt like it was going to poke its head out or walk out. I was so prepared. I was just so ready, would not have surprised me at that point. But, it was, just really strange.
Have you gotten a chance to see one yet?
In 2015 in the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's kind of a big can of worms if I mention him, but I'll say it was alongside a guy named Justin Smiha, who was famous for having that story of shooting two Sasquatch up there in the Sierras. So there, I heard that there's through the grapevine that Small Town Monsters is going to have a story on that soon. Later this year. Should be really good. Eli makes solid documentaries, and he's going to cover that. So, but I was up there with him, and this is about 5 miles as a crow flies from where that story took place. And it was about 2:30 in the morning, and I had a thermal imager with no record capability. Those were harder to get back then. Okay. And, it was at the end of a 3-day weekend up there that we were all up there, and there was this little hillside that went up next to camp. At that point, we had experienced something knocking on wood. We'd experienced what looked like a trackway walking right through camp when we were all gone. And, when these things happen, we try to be as skeptical as possible and rule things out. So we weren't speaking in absolutes, still open-minded. And that last night, I was panning around, and I was the last person up. Everyone had gone to sleep, which I think played a factor into it. The fire was dying out. And I looked up into the tree line and saw what looked like a person standing there. And it took me, I want to say, maybe 10 seconds to start to go, maybe that's not a person. And there came a point where I saw it do this little sway back and forth and almost like a readjusting of its feet. And there was a point where I saw its arm, it kind of shrug and do this, arm motion. And that's when it hit me, like, this is not somebody from camp. This is not somebody from outside of camp, because we're completely isolated, one road in, one road out. And I started to have like this, I wish I was this researcher that was like seasoned at the time. I wish it was now. Now I would have reacted differently. But at the time, I went into something that I had never done before. I went into a full-blown panic, which I had never experienced in my life. Heart racing, sweating, shaking. It felt like this thing was going to walk off the hillside toward me, and it was operating in total darkness, confidently. I felt that way. I had watched it for about 2 minutes, and I was kicking Justin in his cot in the ribs. He's a heavy sleeper, and he finally woke up. Hey, what's going on? I'm going, dude, it's right there. There's something there, and telling him about it. I go, you got to look at it. He goes, no, don't take your eye off it. Just don't take your eye off it. And the impression that I got was that it was looking at me, waiting for me to turn away, because it doesn't realize that I can see it. This is about 60 to 80 yards away, maybe. It doesn't realize that I have a thermal imager in my hand and can see it. I think that it thinks that I was looking in its general direction, and it was just standing still. And I finally won the staring contest, and it turned to its right and walked right down this steep embankment. And then we can hear it walk a parallel camp, crunch, 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 crunch. We both heard it. And it was just like a total slap in the face. Like, they're out there and they're real. And ever since then, I've been completely hell-bent on trying to film one. I go out in the day with my Sony a7 III to try to capture one in high definition, in the highest definition I can. I have my phone on me handy at all times. I don't want to see one again and not film it. And, at night, I got my thermal imager, I hang out with people that, have their night vision ready. And, I try to be as prepared as possible, because they do come out, they do exist. And, I might have an opportunity, maybe. So, cool. But yeah, that was back in 2015, and I haven't seen one since.
Well, at least you're still going out. You're going out to a lot of very active areas, it sounds like. So it seems like it's just a matter of time, hopefully. But
yeah. My goal is like to research, try to find hair, try to find any form of evidence. I do like to talk to people and convey their stories on my videos. And, I put myself in I always think, what did Roger Patterson do? What did Paul Freeman do? Well, they put themselves in the best position possible, and they put hard boots on the ground working. So they did the tracking. They learned about the environment there. They were prepared. Roger used to jump off of his horse, open his canvas bag, and pull his camera out all in one motion. He practiced this over and over. Of course, when the time came, what happened was, his horse bucked him off, and, they got into this huge scuffle. It didn't go. But I think he pulled his camera out because he had practiced so much. So, and Freeman was up there all the time with his camera, looking for prints and tracking. So I try to just do what they did, and hopefully I'll get lucky one day.
The horse needed to practice a little more on meeting a Sasquatch then.
Yeah. And I heard that Gimlin used to give him a hard time, saying, well, my horse doesn't do that to me, because Bob's an elite rider,
Yep. Oh yeah. Very cool. So it seems like, like you talk about these areas that used to, or, that had the filmed sightings and stuff, and you're still finding evidence and stuff there years later. So do you think that these things when you're going to these sites, are they around the same time that they were originally filmed there? Or do you go a different time of year? Do you think that these creatures are at these sites a specific time of year, or do they live in that area all the time?
Well, for example, like Bluff Creek, the area is only accessible for like 4 to 5 months out of the year. They close the gates and it gets snowed over. So there's not a lot of room to do that. And if people that go early, like I have a video called the Go Road Trackway, where I show 2 gentlemen that found these snow prints on the Go Road. They were the first people up there at that section of the Go Road. They drove through 2 snow drifts that no one had driven through. And then they found this. It's got to be one of the best trackways ever. And if you look at the prints that they took pictures of, I mean, they look really good. And I don't know how they could have made them. That was as soon as they opened the gates. These guys, boy, I don't remember what month it was, something like June, so, and then they close them again just after October. So that's your window. That's it. That's all you got right there. Other than aside from those months, those Bigfoot can roam wherever they want. Whatever they want to live back there can go undetected.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We were doing some research in Rhinelander, Wisconsin there. And this was, April in Wisconsin, which is still pretty cold typically and stuff, but we're in this area that has like a lot of hills and, you know, ravines and stuff, and it was like 50-60 degrees out, just, you know, in outside of the woods and that. But down in the woods in some of these areas there was still ice, you know.
Oh, wow.
So it's interesting that, you know, you don't really think about that, you know, just that amount of tree cover can completely change the environment inside these areas and keep that snow cold from not getting the sunlight to get in there and stuff. And it was cold, like, in these areas, obviously, if there's still ice and stuff in there, but it was just really, really interesting to see that, because, you know, it's like June.
It's not that hard to be a Bigfoot when you really think about it.
Oh yeah.
You know, people we can't get to where they live. It's so hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, we are coming up on the end of our show here, guys. To remind everybody, we are pre-recorded today, so if we're ignoring any questions or comments, that's why. But what are you working on now, man? Where's your next trip planned, and do you have any conferences or anything coming up?
No conferences, but if anybody running one that needs a speaker, you know, hit me up. My work situation has changed and allows me to do this now, and I'd be more than happy to. I have I feel like I put together something real good for you guys. As far as my channel goes, I am going to upload I think I got next in queue is the entire hike to the Patterson-Gimlin film site. I am going to return to Bluff Creek this year. I am also going to go back to the Blue Mountains with a group to investigate. I do plan on going back to Washington and hitting a couple other places around the Mount Rainier area. And, you know, I'll bring those all to you. And you know what? Now, Barnaby, you gave me a great idea. I need to sneak my teeth into my local forest here.
Absolutely.
In Idaho.
Absolutely. You know, that's what you got to do. You got to find a local area that you can get to on a weekly basis. Cause, you know, like you said, to drive 13 hours, 8 hours away to these hot spots, I mean, that's great. You know, if you can swing it, but that's a lot of time to drive or even fly or something over there. That's time and money that you're spending when you could be spending it in the woods already. So I definitely think, you know, I mean, like I said, I don't know much about Idaho. So, but if you got the areas and stuff like that to pinpoint that down and, you know, talk to some people and find a specific spot that would work that's close to home, I think that would be ideal. I mean, we've done that here in Wisconsin, and we're still working on finding anything there, but we have definitely some good locations that there should be stuff going on. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. And you keep hacking away at Wisconsin. Absolutely,
man. Well, I look forward to your next documentary and stuff, and hopefully chatting again soon, man. It's been great. So much cool stuff. I think I have not gotten the chance to get out to Washington or Oregon at all for anything, and I've traveled to every other state on that side of the United States. I've only missed that top corner and then down by Florida, like Louisiana and a couple states down there. But I've been through every other state except there. So,
well, when you do, you know, let me know. Give me a shout out, and maybe I'll go up there, join you, see what you're doing, and we'll go out together, man. That'd be neat.
Sounds cool, man. Awesome. All right. Well, you take care, and we will talk to you later. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share all things here on the Untold Radio Network and Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. In the show notes, guys, if you're interested in more of Jonathan's work for Western Bigfoot Explorations, find that in the show notes. We got links to all of his YouTube channels and specifically the newest Mount Rainier video. So go check that out. It's pretty cool. Sounds like there's a lot of really neat evidence with the rock clacking and stuff. And go check it out, man. Until next week, guys, thank you all for watching. It has been a great time. And until next time, guys, I'll see you on the edge.